In a peaceful little town nestled between rolling hills, there was a boy named Arshman. He was a bright, cheerful child, loved by everyone for his kind heart and his infectious laugh. But what made Arshman truly special wasn't just his smile, it was his shadow. Most children had a shadow that followed them around. But Arshman's shadow wasn't just an ordinary shadow. It was alive with magic. Whenever Arshman danced, his shadow would do the same, twirling and spinning as if it had a mind of its own. When he laughed, the shadow would ripple and wiggle, sometimes turning into funny shapes like a dog, a butterfly, or even a smiling sun. It wasn't just a shadow, it was a friend who loved to have fun and make others happy. People in the village often said, "Look at Arshman and his magical shadow. It's like his shadow has a life of its own." But Arshman never boasted about it. He didn't think of his shadow as anything special. To him, it was just his companion always there, playing games, making funny shapes, and sharing moments of joy. Arshman loved his shadow, and he believed everyone should have a shadow that made them smile. One afternoon, after school, Arshman was walking through the park on his way home. His shadow danced around him in playful spirals, casting different shapes on the ground. The sun was shining brightly, and everything felt peaceful and perfect. As Arshman skipped along the path, he noticed something strange. On the bench under a large oak tree sat a boy who looked a little older than him. His clothes were dusty, and his face seemed sad, as if he had been thinking about something for a long time. What was even stranger was that the boy didn't have a shadow, not even a little one. The ground next to him was perfectly empty. There was no dark shape beside him at all. Arshman's heart felt heavy. He had never seen anyone without a shadow before. Curious, Arshman approached the boy and said, "Hi, my name is Arshman. What's yours?" The boy looked up, startled at first. Then he smiled weakly. "I'm Bilal," he replied in a soft voice. "Why are you sitting all alone?" Arshman asked. "And why don't you have a shadow?" Bilal's smile faded, and he looked down at the ground where his feet rested, casting no shadow at all. "I don't know," Bilal said quietly. "I woke up one morning and my shadow was gone. I looked everywhere for it, but it's just not there. It's like I've been forgotten, or maybe I just don't matter anymore. Every time I look around, everyone else has their shadow, but mine disappeared." Arshman listened carefully, and he could feel that Bilal was really sad. He thought for a moment, and then had an idea. He looked down at his own shadow, which was playfully twirling around him. He smiled and said, "Would you like to borrow my shadow for a while?" Bilal looked confused. "Borrow your shadow? How can I do that?" Arshman's shadow, who had been listening all along, wiggled happily and slid over to Bilal's feet. It moved like a gentle wave, touching the ground softly beneath him. It wrapped around his legs, then traveled up his body, and finally rested beside him. Bilal gasped. It's warm," he whispered. The shadow wasn't cold or scary like he thought it would be. Instead, it felt like a comforting hug. Arshman laughed and said, "See? Shadows like being with kind people. My shadow is very friendly." Bilal smiled a little, and for the first time in a long while, he felt something comforting, something safe. He looked down at the ground, and his new shadow danced happily beside him. "Your shadow? It's making shapes," Bilal said with wonder. "Look, it's turning into a dog, and now it's a butterfly." Arshman's shadow stretched and twisted into all kinds of fun shapes, sometimes turning into a giraffe, sometimes into a rocket ship soaring into the sky. Bilal laughed and laughed, watching the shapes change and move. From that moment on, Arshman and Bilal became the best of friends. Every afternoon after school, they would meet in the park to play. Arshman's shadow would join them, dancing along, making animals, and forming hearts and stars. The boys would chase the shadow, pretending it was a mischievous creature that they had to catch. But there was something even more magical happening. As the days passed, Bilal's shadow began to grow. At first, it was just a tiny, faint shadow that appeared when the sun was bright. But over time, as Bilal smiled more, laughed more, and played with Arshman, his shadow began to get stronger and clearer. It stretched out, forming a small but real shape next to him. One afternoon, Bilal looked down and saw something incredible. His shadow, which had been nearly invisible, was now as strong and playful as Arshman's. It bounced on the ground, making shapes just like Arshman's shadow did. It was alive again. "Arshman, my shadow, it's back!" Bilal exclaimed, his face lighting up with joy. Arshman jumped up and hugged him. "I knew it would come back. Shadows can hide when we're sad or feel alone, but they always return when we start feeling better, when we find joy and friendship again." The two boys stood together, watching their shadows stretch and sway as the evening sun sank behind the hills. It was a beautiful sight. From that day on, Bilal's shadow never left him again. He didn't need to borrow Arshman's shadow anymore. Instead, he would share his shadow with others who might feel lonely or sad. Whenever a new child came to the park, Arshman and Bilal would go over to them and say, "Would you like to borrow our shadow for a little while?" And just like that, the magic of friendship and kindness spread through the town. No one ever felt alone again, because they knew that there was always someone willing to share their shadow. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more.